3 knocks rattled the door. It was not a request for entry. It was the sound of ownership. I opened it to find a realtor flanking a couple in resort wear, clutching a flyer that showcased my ocean view. He smiled, declaring the sellers were Grant and Celeste Creekmore. I did not argue or scream. I simply drove to the county recorder's office to let the land records tell the only truth that mattered. My name is Fallon Creekmore, and I was 34 years old when I learned that family betrayal does not make a sound until it is standing on your doormat. I was standing in the kitchen of the condo my grandfather, Wade Creekmore, had deeded to me 3 years prior. It was a Tuesday morning, roughly 10 o'clock, and the air inside Unit 402 smelled of brewing coffee and the salt spray that encrusted the sliding glass doors. Gullhaven, Florida, was not the kind of place people came to be seen. It was where people came to disappear. That was why Grandpa Wade had loved it. He had spent his life navigating the shark tank of Northeast investment banking, and this 2-bedroom sanctuary overlooking the Gulf of Mexico was the only place he ever took off his tie. I was wearing an oversized t-shirt and boxers, holding a ceramic mug that still retained the heat of the dishwasher. The silence of the apartment was a physical weight, a luxury I guarded jealously. Then came the 3 knocks. They were authoritative knocks. They were not the tentative taps of a neighbor asking to borrow sugar, nor the rhythmic pounding of a delivery driver running behind schedule. These knocks possessed the distinct cadence of ownership. I set my mug down on the quartz counter. I walked across the living room, my bare feet silent on the cool tile. The hallway outside my unit was usually empty this time of year, as the snowbirds had mostly migrated north for the summer. When I unlocked the deadbolt and swung the door open, the humidity of the corridor hit me first, followed immediately by the scent of expensive cologne. Standing on my welcome mat was a trio that looked like they had been cut out of a lifestyle magazine advertisement. In the center stood a man in a navy blazer with gold buttons. Despite the 80-degree heat, he held a leather portfolio against his chest like a shield. To his left and right stood a couple in their 60s, dressed in matching cream linen, radiating the specific, relaxed entitlement of people who had spent their lives spending money. The man in the blazer smiled. It was a practiced expression, involving only his mouth and none of his face. "Good morning," he said, his voice a smooth baritone. "We are here for the private showing." I blinked. I looked at him, then at the linen couple, who were already peering past my shoulder, trying to catch a glimpse of the ocean view through my living room. "I am sorry," I said, my voice flat. "You have the wrong unit." The agent's smile did not falter, but a flicker of irritation twitched at the corner of his eye. He pulled a sheet of glossy paper from his portfolio and held it up. "Unit 402, he read aloud. "Seabreak Residences. The appointment is confirmed for 10:15 in the morning." I looked at the paper. It was a listing flyer. At the top, in bold sans serif font, it read, "Oceanfront Gem, turnkey condition." Below the text was a photograph of my living room. My stomach dropped, a sensation akin to missing a step on a staircase in the dark. I recognized that photo. It had been taken 2 years ago. During a Christmas party my parents had insisted on hosting here. My grandfather's vintage leather armchair was in the corner of the frame. The light was golden. It looked warm. It looked inviting. It looked like it was for sale. "Where did you get that?" I asked. I did not move from the doorway. I planted my hand on the frame, blocking their path. The agent sighed. A short exhale of professional patience wearing thin. "Ma'am, please, we have a schedule. Mr. and Mrs. Albright have flown in specifically to view this property. If you are the tenant, you should have been notified by the owners." "The tenant," I repeated. The word tasted like copper. "Yes," the agent said. He adjusted his grip on the portfolio. "We need to come in now." "Who listed this?" I asked. My heart was hammering against my ribs, a frantic rhythm that contrasted with the deadly calm spreading through my limbs. The agent looked at the linen couple, offering them an apologetic grimace, before turning his gaze back to me. He spoke the next sentence with the casual confidence of someone stating a universal fact. like the sky is blue or water is wet. The sellers are Grant and Celeste Creekmore. The blood drained from my face. I felt the cold spread from my chest to my fingertips. Grant and Celeste Creekmore. My parents. I did not scream. I did not shout that they were liars. I did not make a scene, because that is exactly what Grant and Celeste Creekmore would have expected. They relied on my emotion to validate their control. If I screamed, I was the hysterical daughter. If I cried, I was the unstable child who needed managing. Instead, I looked at the agent. "Let me see that." I reached out and plucked the flyer from his hand before he could protest. I scanned the page. The listing price was $1,200,000, a steal for this location. They were trying to offload it fast. I looked at the bottom of the page. There was a digital signature line. Authorized seller Grant Creekmore. "You cannot come in," I said. My voice was quiet, but it was hard as granite. The linen woman frowned. "Excuse me, we have an appointment. This apartment is not for sale," I said. "And if you take one step inside, I will call the police for trespassing." The agent puffed up his chest. "Now listen here. I have a signed listing agreement. The owners, Grant and Celeste Creekmore, have authorized this showing. Public records show the property belongs to the Creekmore Family Trust. If you are refusing access, you are in violation of the lease terms and causing damages to my clients." He was mansplaining my own life to me. He was quoting public records he had likely skimmed 5 minutes ago on his phone. "Leave," I said. "You are making a mistake," the agent warned, his veneer of politeness vanishing to reveal the bully beneath. "I will be calling Mr. Creekmore immediately." "Do that," I said. "Tell him Fallon said hello." I slammed the door. I leaned against the wood, breathing hard. My hands were shaking. I looked at the flyer I was still clutching. The paper was thick, high quality. They had spared no expense in selling my life out from under me. Wait, how did they get up here? The Seabreak residences had a secure lobby. You needed a fob or a code to access the elevators, and you certainly needed a key to get into the unit. I turned and looked at the deadbolt. It was locked from the inside now, but I remembered the agent's hand. He had been reaching for something in his pocket when I opened the door. I unlocked the door and threw it open again. The trio was halfway down the hall, the agent talking furiously into his cell phone. I ignored them and stepped out into the corridor. Barefoot, I walked to the stairwell door at the end of the hall. There, hanging on the handle of the fire door, was a gray lockbox. It was brand new. I could see the sticker residue on the side. I pulled my phone from my pocket and snapped a picture of it. I zoomed in on the keypad. It was a digital box, the kind that logged access. I turned back to the elevator lobby. The keypad by the elevator doors had a small smudge on the number 4. Someone had given them the code. I walked back to my door, the agent's voice echoing down the hall. "Yes, Grant. She is being extremely difficult. Yes, I understand." I stepped inside and locked the door again. This time, I engaged the secondary slide lock I had installed myself a year ago. I looked closely at the main lock. The brass housing around the keyhole was scratched. Fine. Silver lines marred the aged metal. I ran my thumb over them. They were fresh scratches. My stomach turned. Someone had tampered with this. Someone had changed the cylinder, or at least tried to. The key I used every day, did it still work? I grabbed my keys from the bowl and tested it. It turned, but it felt gritty, different. They had not just listed the apartment, they had physically prepared it for transfer. They had likely sent a locksmith here while I was at work earlier in the week to rekey the property for the new owners. The violation made my skin crawl. It felt as if someone had reached inside my chest and rearranged my ribs without asking. My phone buzzed in my hand. I looked at the screen. A text message from Mother. "Do not overreact. You will ruin the future of this family if you make a scene. We are doing what is best. No explanation. No, hello, Fallon. No, we need to talk." Just an order and a guilt trip wrapped in a single sentence. It was classic Celeste. She framed every betrayal as a necessary sacrifice for the family future, a future that mysteriously always aligned with her checking account. I did not reply. I took a screenshot of the message. I went to the living room and sat on the edge of the sofa. I needed to think. I needed to be smart. Grandpa Wade used to say, "In a storm, the fool screams at the wind, the wise man trims the sails." I dialed Ethan. My husband, Ethan Calloway, was 1,000 miles away in Chicago, sitting in a conference room negotiating a merger for his tech firm. He answered on the second ring. "Everything okay?" His voice was low. He must have stepped out of the meeting. "My parents just tried to show the condo," I said. I forced my voice to remain steady. "A realtor just showed up with buyers. He said Grant and Celeste are the sellers." There was a pause on the line. A long, heavy silence. Ethan knew my parents. He knew the way they operated with smiles and knives. "Did they get in?" Ethan asked. "No, I blocked the door." "But Ethan, there is a lockbox on the stairwell, and the lock on my front door, it looks like it has been messed with. They are moving fast." "Okay," Ethan said. I could hear his brain shifting gears, moving from corporate strategy to crisis management. "Listen to me. Fallon, do not call them. Do not scream at them. If you call them, they will record it. They will say you are unstable. They will use it to justify a guardianship or some other insanity to get control." "I know," I said. "Mom just texted me. She told me not to ruin the family future." "Of course she did," Ethan said, his voice cold. "Here is what we are going to do. I am booking the first flight back, but I cannot get there until tonight. You need to secure the physical premises. Call the building management and report the unauthorized lockbox. But do not tell them it is your parents yet. Just say it is a security breach. And then you need to prove ownership," Ethan said. "The realtor said public records show they own it. That means they filed something. They must have filed a deed." "Grandpa left it to me," I said, my voice rising slightly. "I have the deed in the safe. It is in my name. I pay the property taxes." "I know you do," Ethan soothed. "But if they are this confident, they have a piece of paper that says otherwise. You need to see what they filed. You need to go to the county recorder." "The recorder's office," I repeated. "Yes. Don't look at the online portal. The online data can be laggy or cached. Go to the office, get the physical file, see what is in the chain of title. If they forge something, it will be there." "Okay," I said. "I'm going." "Fallon," Ethan said, "be careful. If they are desperate enough to sell the condo out from under you while you are living in it, they are desperate enough to do anything." "I love you," I said. "I love you too. Keep the chain on the door until you leave." I hung up. I stood up and walked to the bedroom. I dressed quickly: jeans, a white button-down shirt, loafers. I did not want to look like the girl in the boxers. I wanted to look like the owner. I grabbed my purse and the folder from the safe where I kept Grandpa Wade's original deed. The paper was heavy, the seal embossed in gold. It was my shield. I walked to the door. I paused and looked at the scratch marks on the lock again. I took one more photo, close up, using the macro lens setting on my phone. Then I left. I did not take the elevator. I took the stairs, grabbing the lockbox from the railing on my way down. I didn't know the code to open it, but I wasn't going to leave it there for the realtor to come back. I shoved the heavy metal box into my tote bag. It clanked against my water bottle. A dull, heavy sound. I walked through the lobby. The concierge, a young man named David, waved at me. "Good morning, Ms. Creekmore," he said. "Morning, David," I said. I paused. "Did you give a code to a realtor this morning?" David looked confused. "No, ma'am. Mr. Creekmore called yesterday and said he had a guest coming. Asked for a temporary passcode. He said it was family." "I see," I said. "Cancel that code. David, immediately. And if anyone else comes asking for keys to 402, you call the police." David's eyes widened. "Is everything okay?" "No," I said. "It is not." I walked out into the blinding Florida sun. The heat was oppressive, wrapping around me like a wet blanket. I marched to my car. a 5-year-old sedan that my parents constantly urged me to upgrade. I threw the bag with the lockbox into the passenger seat. I started the engine and backed out of the spot. I did not drive to my parents' estate in the gated community of Royal Palms. I did not drive to their country club. I turned right onto the highway, heading toward the county seat. My mother wanted me to be a good daughter. She wanted me to keep the peace. She wanted me to accept that they owned me, just as they owned their cars and their stocks and their summer homes. But Grandpa Wade had taught me differently. He had taught me that in the world of high-stakes finance and real estate, the truth wasn't what you felt. The truth wasn't what you said at dinner parties. The truth was what was written in ink, stamped by a clerk, and stored in a fireproof vault. I was going to the Hall of Records. I was going to let the system speak. And if my parents had declared war on me, I was going to make sure that the first casualty was their reputation. I merged onto the interstate, the speedometer climbing to 70 miles per hour. The air conditioning blasted against my face, drying the sweat on my forehead. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. 3 knocks. That was all it took to shatter the illusion of a family. I checked the time on the dashboard. It was 10:45 in the morning. By noon, I would know exactly how much my parents thought my life was worth. The county recorder's office was located in the basement level of the courthouse annex, a place designed without windows or warmth, illuminated solely by the aggressive hum of fluorescent tube lighting. It smelled of toner, floor wax, and the stale anxiety of people trying to prove they owned the ground they stood on. I pulled a ticket from the red dispenser near the door. Number 47. The digital board above the counter glowed with number 42. I took a seat on a hard plastic chair bolted to the floor, in the hallway outside. Life was messy. Upstairs in family court, people were arguing over custody and alimony, but down here, the world was supposed to be binary. It was a place of absolutes. A deed was recorded, or it was not. A lien existed, or it did not. There was no room for, but we are family, or it was just a misunderstanding in these ledger books. That was why I was here. I needed the cold, hard comfort of a database. My parents could charm a realtor. They could gaslight a doorman. They could not charm a timestamp. I held the folder containing Grandpa Wade's original deed against my chest. I could feel the texture of the heavy bond paper through the manila cover. I focused on my breathing, in through the nose, out through the mouth. I had to be clinical. I had to be a surgeon cutting out a tumor, not a daughter crying over a scraped knee. Number 47, a computerized voice announced. I stood up and walked to window 3. The clerk was a woman in her 50s with gray hair pulled back in a severe bun and reading glasses suspended on a beaded chain around her neck. She did not look up as I approached. She was typing something, her fingers moving with a rhythmic, percussive speed that suggested she had typed the same codes 1,000,000 times before. "Help you?" she asked. Finally looking over the rims of her glasses, her name tag read, Patricia. "I need to pull a chain of title," I said, keeping my voice level, "and I need to see the most recent instrument recorded for a specific parcel." "Address?" Patricia asked, her hands hovering over the keyboard. 402 Ocean Drive, Unit 402, Gullhaven, I said. "The Seabreak Residences," Patricia typed. The keys clattered. She hit enter and stared at the screen. "I am the owner," I added, sliding my driver's license and the original deed under the glass partition. "Fallon Creekmore. This is the deed transferring the property to me 3 years ago." Patricia glanced at my ID, then back at the screen. She frowned. It was a small movement, a slight crinkling of the forehead, but in a room defined by boredom. It felt like a siren. She tapped the down arrow key, then she tapped it again. She leaned forward, squinting at the monitor. "You said you are the owner," she asked. Her tone had shifted. It was no longer bored. It was cautious. "Yes," I said. "Wade Creekmore to Fallon Creekmore. Recorded October 14th, 2023. "I see that one," Patricia said. She paused. She took her hands off the keyboard and placed them in her lap. But that is not the most recent recording. My heart hammered against my ribs. A trapped bird. What is the most recent recording? Patricia did not answer immediately. She turned her head and called out to a desk behind her. Mr. Henderson, can you take a look at this? Mr. Henderson, a man with a weary face and a tie that had been tied and untied too many times, walked over. He stood behind Patricia. She pointed at a line on the screen. He leaned in, reading. He looked at the screen. Then he looked at me. Then back at the screen. Ma'am. Mr. Henderson said, when did you say you bought the property? I did not buy it. I inherited it. 3 years ago. I said. Why, Mr. Henderson turned the monitor slightly so I could see it through the glass. It was a list of transactions, a digital history of the land going back decades. He pointed to the top line, highlighted in blue. This instrument was recorded yesterday. Mr. Henderson said, at 4:45 in the afternoon. I looked at the text. It was a sterile string of data that dismantled my life. Instrument type quitclaim deed. Grantor Fallon Creekmore, Grantee Grant Creekmore and Celeste Creekmore, as joint tenants with right of survivorship. No, I said. The word fell out of my mouth, heavy and useless. That is impossible. I did not sign that. It is on the record. Mr. Henderson said, not unkindly, but with the firmness of a man who trusted his machine. Recorded yesterday. The realtor had acted like they had owned it for months. He had lied. They had rushed this through the system less than 24 hours before trying to show the unit. They were selling a house they had stolen the previous afternoon. I need to see it, I said. I need you to print the image. Patricia looked at Mr. Henderson. He nodded. She hit a few keys. The laser printer behind her whirred to life. A moment later, she slid a warm 3-page document under the glass. I picked it up. My hands were trembling, but my eyes were sharp. I skipped the legal description of the property, the metes and bounds, the parcel number, and went straight to the signature block on the second page. There it was. Fallon Creekmore. I stared at my own name. It was my signature, or at least, it was a very good picture of my signature. The loop of the F was precise. The cross of the T was at the exact angle I always used, but it was too perfect. When a person signs a document, especially under the pressure of a legal transaction, there are micro-tremors. There is variation in ink pressure. This signature looked fluid, frictionless. It looked like someone had taken a high-resolution scan of my signature from another document and traced it with a digital stylus. It lacked the jagged edge of humanity. It was a ghost of my hand. This is not me, I whispered. I looked at the notary block. In the old days, you had to stand in front of a person, show your ID, and sign a physical book. But the world had changed. The block at the bottom stamped the location as Commonwealth of Virginia, but the text below it read, Remote Online Notarization Pursuant to Virginia Code. It was a digital notary, a RON. I looked at the timestamp of the notarization, January 22nd, 2026, 2:15 in the afternoon. I let out a sharp, incredulous breath. 2:15, I said aloud. Ma'am? Patricia asked. Yesterday at 2:15 in the afternoon. I was in a quarterly budget review meeting. I said. I was on a video call with 40 other people. I have the logs. I have the recording. I could not have been signing a deed in front of a notary in Virginia, or even online, because I was presenting a slide deck on mute. Mr. Henderson crossed his arms. We do not verify the alibis of the signatories. Ma'am, we check for formatting compliance. The document has a valid notary seal. It has the correct margins. It has the legal description, so we recorded it. It is a forgery, I said. It is fraud. I flipped to the first page, looking for the header information. In the top left corner, there was a small block of text indicating who had submitted the document for electronic recording. Submitted by Blue Heron Title and Escrow Services. Returned to Grant Creekmore, Blue Heron Title. I had never heard of them. It sounded generic. The kind of name you buy off a shelf when you want to look legitimate, but have no office. But it was the contact number listed under the submitter's profile that made the room spin. 772-555-0198. I knew that number. It was not a corporate line. It was not an office switchboard. When I was a teenager, my father had a separate cell phone he kept in the glove compartment of his Porsche. He told my mother it was for international clients who needed to reach him at odd hours. He told me once, when I caught him texting on it during my graduation dinner, that it was the fixer phone. It was the number he used when he didn't want the family lawyers or the main office secretary to see the call logs. My father had used his personal burner phone to register the fake title company that stole my house. That number, I said, pointing to the paper, that is my father's number. Mr. Henderson leaned in closer. The submitter is Blue Heron Title. Blue Heron Title is a ghost, I said. My father is the one who pressed send. I looked up at Mr. Henderson. The fear was gone, replaced by a cold, vibrating rage. They hadn't just forged a signature. They had built a fake infrastructure. They had hired a digital notary who either didn't look close enough or was paid to look away. They had uploaded a digital file to the county server, paid the recording fee with a credit card, and erased my ownership with a few clicks of a mouse. How do I stop this? I asked. You have to delete it. It is fake. Mr. Henderson shook his head slowly. We cannot delete a record, Miss Creekmore. Once it is in the book, it is history. We cannot unring the bell. So you are telling me, I said, my voice rising, that because they formatted their lie correctly, it is now the truth. No, Mr. Henderson said. I am saying that the system assumes honesty until a judge tells it otherwise. We are a library, not a police station. He looked at the paper in my hand, then at the distress on my face. His bureaucratic mask slipped. Just an inch. However, he said, lowering his voice, if you are claiming this is criminal activity, we can flag the parcel. We can put a notice in the system. A notice, I said. We call it a fraud hold, or a red flag, he said. It does not remove the deed, but it puts a giant warning sign on the file. It stops any further automatic processing. If they try to sell it, or mortgage it, the next title search will pull up the alert. I looked at the quitclaim deed again. Grant and Celeste Creekmore. They thought they had won. They thought the piece of paper made it true. They relied on the fact that I would be too scared, too confused, or too respectful of the family to come down here and look at the raw data. They forgot that I was Grandpa Wade's granddaughter. He hadn't taught me how to spend money. He had taught me how to read the fine print. Do it, I said to Mr. Henderson. Mark it, flag it, but before you do, I want to see everything else pending in the queue, because if they filed a deed yesterday, they are not done. Mr. Henderson nodded to Patricia. Check the batch intake. See if Blue Heron has anything else pending for this APN. Patricia typed. She hit a key. She gasped. A small, sharp intake of air. There is another one, she said. Came in 10 minutes ago. It is in the processing queue. What is it? I demanded. It is not a sale, Patricia said, looking at me with pity. It is a deed of trust, a mortgage. My blood ran cold. They weren't just selling the condo. They were borrowing against it. They were cashing out the equity before they even sold it. Print it, I said. Print the logs. Print the metadata. Print everything you have. I looked around the sterile, windowless room. The fluorescent lights hummed. The air conditioner rattled. It was the ugliest place on earth, and yet, it was the only place that was telling me the truth. My parents had a head start. They had the element of surprise. They had a forged deed and a fake title company. But I had the timestamp, I had the IP logs, and I was standing at the source of the river. Ms. Creekmore? Mr. Henderson said, handing me a sworn statement form. If you want to stop that mortgage from recording, you need to fill this out. Now. You need to go on the record and say that your parents are criminals." I took the pen. The black ink looked dark and permanent against the white paper. "They are not my parents right now," I said, uncapping the pen. "They are the grantee, and I am the plaintiff." I pressed the pen to the paper. I did not hesitate. I began to write. I pressed the tip of the black ballpoint pen against the paper until the fibers groaned under the pressure. The form was titled Affidavit of Forgery, a single sheet of government-issued cardstock that felt heavier than a tombstone. Line 4. "Mr. Henderson said, his voice dropping to a murmur, as if we were conspiring in a library. "State clearly that you did not sign the instrument, nor did you authorize any agent to sign on your behalf." I wrote the words, "I did not sign this deed. I did not authorize this transfer. The signature is a digital fabrication." My hand moved with a jagged, furious speed. Next to the forgery allegation, there was a box for a specimen signature, my actual signature, executed in front of a witness. I signed Fallon Creekmore. I signed it with the sharp, distinctive loop on the C that I had developed in law school, the one that the digital ghost on the quitclaim deed had failed to replicate perfectly. "And here," Patricia said, sliding a notary logbook toward me, "date and time." I looked at the clock on the wall. It was 11:12 in the morning. Less than an hour had passed since the 3 knocks on my door, but my life had effectively split into 2 distinct timelines. Before I knew my parents were criminals. And after. "Done," I said, sliding the affidavit back under the glass partition. Mr. Henderson took the document. He scanned it, stamped it with a heavy, rhythmic thud, and then turned to his keyboard. He typed a series of commands that sounded like gunfire. Clack, 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 enter. On the monitor facing me, the screen flickered. A bright red banner appeared across the top of the digital file for parcel number 40299. The text was bold and white against the crimson background, recording hold/fraud alert. "It is done, Mr. Henderson said. "The system is locked. Any new instrument submitted against this parcel number will trigger a manual review. Nothing gets recorded without my eyes, or the county recorder's eyes. On it first." I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. It was a small victory, a digital sandbag thrown up against a rising flood. But the flood was still rising. "Thank you," I said. "Now, please check the queue again. You said there was something pending." "Mr. Henderson nodded. He tabbed over to the intake queue, the digital waiting room where documents sat before they were officially stamped and codified into history. "Right," he said. "The batch from Blue Heron Title. It was a multi-part submission." He clicked on the next file. "It is a deed of trust," he said. "Standard mortgage instrument." "Who is the lender?" I asked. "Looks like a private lender." "Apex Bridge Capital, LLC," he read. "Loan amount is $750,000. $750,000. They weren't just selling the condo. They were trying to extract $750,000 in cash immediately. Bridge loans were fast, high interest, and often less scrupulous about due diligence. "And the borrower?" I asked, though I already felt the answer tightening around my throat like a noose. "Mr. Henderson squinted. He leaned closer to the screen. His expression shifted from bureaucratic detachment to genuine confusion. "The borrower is listed as Fallon Creekmore," he said. I gripped the edge of the counter. "Me? But the deed they just filed transferred it to them." "Yes," Mr. Henderson said, tapping his chin. "But look at the timestamp on this submission. It was uploaded 3 minutes before the quitclaim deed was recorded. They submitted the loan package first, using your name as the owner, and then submitted the transfer deed to themselves immediately after." He clicked another tab. "Wait, there is a secondary submission linked to this loan number, a co-borrower addendum." He turned the screen so I could see it clearly. There, in black pixelated type, was a name that made the room spin. Co-borrower Ethan Calloway. A sound escaped my throat, a ragged noise that was half gasp, half growl. They hadn't just stolen my property. They had used my identity, and my husband's identity, to secure a massive loan. If that loan funded, if that money was wired to whatever shell account Grant Creekmore controlled, Ethan and I would be on the hook for nearly $1 million of debt we never saw. They were trying to bankrupt us. They were trying to shackle our marriage to their financial ruin. They used Ethan, I whispered. He is in Chicago. He does not even know this exists. This is aggressive, Mr. Henderson said. This is not just a family dispute, Ms. Creekmore. This is identity theft on a federal level. Mortgage fraud involving a wire transfer. I want the logs, I said. My voice was no longer shaking. It was cold steel. Mr. Henderson, I want every single byte of data associated with this submission. I want the IP address of the uploader. I want the routing trail. I want the list of attachments they uploaded to verify identity. I can give you the transaction receipt and the metadata report, he said. The IP logs usually require a subpoena, but he hesitated, looking at the red banner on the screen and then at my face. I can print the transmission details summary. It sometimes captures the origin server. Do it, I said. And I need to take a picture of that red banner. I need proof that the hold is active. Strictly speaking, photography is not allowed in the secure area, Patricia began. Mr. Henderson cut her off with a sharp wave of his hand. Let her take the picture, Patricia. I pulled out my phone. I snapped a photo of the monitor, ensuring the red recording hold banner and the parcel number were clearly visible. Then I snapped a photo of the queue showing Ethan's name. My phone buzzed. It was a notification from my email app, but I ignored it. I had to secure the physical ground. The legal ground was holding for the moment, but the condo itself was still vulnerable. I dialed the number for the Seabreak Residences Management Office. I put it on speaker so Mr. Henderson could hear. I wanted witnesses to everything. Seabreak Management, this is Sarah, a chirpy voice answered. Sarah, this is Fallon Creekmore in Unit 402, I said. I am currently at the county recorder's office with the fraud division. I saw Mr. Henderson raise an eyebrow at fraud division, but he didn't correct me. Oh, Ms. Creekmore. Sarah's voice dropped an octave. The chirp was gone, replaced by a wary guardedness. How can I help you? I have just placed a legal fraud hold on the title of my unit due to unauthorized activity, I said, speaking clearly and loudly. I am emailing you a photo of the official county confirmation right now. I minimized the call screen and fired the photo I had just taken to the building's general email. I am instructing you, effectively immediately, to remove the unauthorized lockbox from the stairwell door on the 4th floor, I continued. I am also instructing you to delete any entry codes generated in the last 48 hours. No one, and I mean no one, is allowed access to my unit without my physical presence. That includes Grant or Celeste Creekmore. There was a pause on the line. Usually, building management would push back. They would talk about policy or owner authorization, but Sarah answered instantly. We received the email, she said. Her typing was audible in the background. I see the hold. Okay, Ms. Creekmore. We actually had a request from a Mr. Creekmore to issue a contractor pass for this afternoon. He said something about staging the apartment. Cancel it, I snapped. If you allow anyone into that unit, the Seabreak Association will be named as a co-conspirator in the lawsuit I am filing today. Do you understand? Understood, Sarah said. She sounded breathless. I am deleting the codes now. I will have maintenance cut the lockbox off immediately. We do not want any trouble. Ms. Creekmore. Good. Keep the lockbox, I said. Do not throw it away. Put it in the safe. It is evidence. Yes, ma'am. I hung up. The speed of her compliance told me everything. They knew something was wrong. Maybe Grant had been too pushy. Maybe the linen couple from this morning had complained. Or maybe the staff just knew that when the police started getting mentioned, it was time to protect their own jobs. Mr. Henderson handed me a stack of warm paper. Here are the transmission logs and the metadata. I took them. I scanned the pages. Submitter IP 209.I SP Starlink. Device ID, MacBook Pro. Admin_GC, admin_GC, Grant Creekmore. He hadn't even bothered to scrub the device name. He was so arrogant, so used to getting his way, that he thought no one would ever look this deep into the digital plumbing. Ms. Creekmore, Mr. Henderson said. He leaned his elbows on the counter, his expression grave. You have the hold, you have the logs, but you need to understand something. A recording hold is an administrative pause. It is not a court order. It expires in 30 days unless a judge extends it. I know, I said. And, he continued, pointing to the mortgage document in the queue. This lender, Apex Bridge Capital, if they have already wired the funds to the escrow company. Stopping the recording might not stop the money from moving. The escrow officer releases funds when they think they are clear to close. They use Blue Heron Title, I said. It is a sham company. Even sham companies use real banks to move money. Mr. Henderson said, you need to stop the funds. You need a civil lawyer to file a quiet title action immediately. You need a temporary restraining order. And frankly, you need to call the police. I am going to the police station next, I said. It is in the same building, isn't it? Upstairs. Mr. Henderson said. 4th floor. I looked at the red banner one last time. It was the only thing standing between me and total financial annihilation. Mr. Henderson, I said, if anyone at all tries to remove this hold, if a lawyer calls, if my father calls screaming about his rights, what happens? Mr. Henderson straightened his tie. For the first time, he looked like a soldier manning a post rather than a bureaucrat pushing paper. They will be directed to me, he said, and I will tell them that the file is under criminal investigation. Let them scream. I nodded. I gathered the stack of evidence, the sworn affidavit, the logs, the forged deed, the pending mortgage with Ethan's name on it. I didn't leave immediately. I stood there for another minute, watching the screen. I wanted to be sure. I wanted to see if the system would blink. A new line appeared in the activity log on the screen. System query remote user. Blue Heron _admin attempted to access parcel 40299. System response access denied. Fraud, hold active. They just tried to check the status, Patricia whispered. They know, I said. A cold satisfaction settled in my chest. They just refreshed their browser and saw the red lock. My phone buzzed again. A text from Grant. Pick up the phone. Fallon, there is a misunderstanding with the paperwork. We need to fix this before it gets messy. It is already messy, Grant, I murmured to the empty air. I did not reply. I put the phone in my pocket. I turned to Mr. Henderson. Thank you, I said. Do not let them in. Go get them, he said. I turned and walked toward the elevators. The administrative battle was paused. Now, the criminal war began. I pressed the button for the 4th floor. My parents had tried to steal $1 million using my name. They had dragged Ethan into it. They thought family was a shield that would protect them from consequences. They were about to learn that family is not a legal defense in a felony fraud case. The elevator doors opened. I stepped inside, clutching the file that contained the death of my childhood and the weapon for my survival. I hit the button for the police department. The ride up was short, but it felt like ascending a gallows. Not for me, for them. The walk from the county recorder's office in the basement to the sheriff's department on the 4th floor took less than 3 minutes. But it marked a permanent border crossing in my life. Downstairs, I was a citizen dealing with a clerical error. Upstairs, I was becoming a victim witness in a felony investigation against my own parents. I pushed through the heavy double doors of the precinct. The air here was different. It did not smell like paper. It smelled like industrial cleaner and cold coffee. I approached the intake window. The glass was bulletproof, thick and scratched. I need to report a crime in progress, I said. My voice was stripped of all inflection. I was not hysterical. I was not crying. I knew that in this building, emotion was often mistaken for instability. It involves real estate title fraud, forgery, An identity theft involving a wire transfer. The officer at the window looked up. He saw the stack of documents in my hand, the fresh printouts from the recorder downstairs. He saw the set of my jaw. "Have a seat," he said. 10 minutes later, a heavy door buzzed, and a man in a plain shirt with a badge clipped to his belt walked out. He introduced himself as Deputy Miller. He was younger than I expected, perhaps my age, with eyes that looked like they had seen enough lies to recognize the truth when it walked in the door. We sat at a metal table in an interview room that was aggressively beige. I laid out the documents in a grid. "Chronology," Deputy Miller said, pulling a notepad closer. "Just the facts, no backstory, unless it is relevant to the crime." "Fact 1, I said, pointing to the deed. "Yesterday at 2:15 in the afternoon, a quitclaim deed was notarized via remote online session transferring my property at 402 Ocean Drive to Grant and Celeste Creekmore. I was at work. I did not sign this." "Fact 2, I continued, pointing to the log. "The deed was recorded at 4:45 in the afternoon by Blue Heron Title. The IP address traces to a residential connection used by Grant Creekmore." "Fact 3, I said, sliding the mortgage queue printout forward. 10 minutes ago, a deed of trust was submitted for recording against the same property. It lists me as the borrower and my husband, Ethan Calloway. As the co-borrower, we did not apply for this loan. We did not sign these papers." Deputy Miller looked at the papers. He picked up the affidavit I had sworn to downstairs. He looked at my wet ink signature and compared it to the digital one on the deed. "It is a good trace," he muttered. "But the pressure is flat. It is a vector image." He looked up at me. "Grant and Celeste Creekmore, relation." "Parents," I said. He did not blink. He did not say "that is terrible" or "are you sure?" He simply wrote "parents" on his notepad and underlined it twice. "This crosses the threshold for a few things," Miller said, his pen scratching loudly in the quiet room. "Uttering a forged instrument, grand theft, and if that mortgage loan involves wire fraud across state lines, the FBI might get interested. But for now, we are looking at state charges." He stood up. "I need to see the system. You said the recorder put a hold on it." "Yes, a red banner." "Let's go," Miller said. "I need to photograph the active queue for the case file before it changes." We walked back down to the basement. The presence of a uniformed deputy changed the atmosphere in the recorder's office instantly. The quiet hum of typing stopped. People looked up. "Mr. Henderson saw us coming and immediately unlocked the gate to the back office. "Deputy, Mr. Henderson said. "Show me the queue," Miller commanded. "Mr. Henderson turned the monitor. The red recording hold banner was still pulsing silently. Below it, the pending mortgage submission sat in limbo. Deputy Miller took out a digital camera, not a phone, but an evidence camera. He photographed the screen. He photographed the timestamps. He photographed the access-denied log entry from where Blue Heron had tried to check the status. "Can you open the attachment list for the mortgage submission?" Miller asked. The lender would have required identification documents. "Mr. Henderson clicked a small icon next to the loan package. A list of PDFs dropped down. driver_license_front.pdf, driver_license_back.pdf, passport_bio_page.pdf. "Open the license," Miller said. "Mr. Henderson double-clicked. The image filled the screen. The room seemed to tilt. It was my driver's license, but it was not my current one. In the photo, my hair was shorter, a bob cut I had worn 5 years ago. I looked younger, softer, less hardened by the corporate world and the last hour of hell. I leaned in, scanning the data fields. "Expiration date," I said, pointing to the screen. "June 12th, 2024. This license is expired. I shredded this card 2 years ago when I got my new one." Deputy Miller looked at me. "If you shredded it, how do they have a high-resolution color scan of it?" The answer was a heavy stone in my stomach. I remembered the day I moved into my first apartment in the city. My father had insisted on keeping a digital safety deposit box for the family. He had scanned our passports, our birth certificates, Our social security cards. He said it was for emergencies. If you lose your wallet in Europe, Fallon, I can wire you money and email you your ID. I had thought it was love. I had thought it was protection. It was inventory management. My father, I said. He has a server. He kept copies of all my documents from when I was in my 20s. He told me he deleted them when I got married. He lied, Miller said. This is the smoking gun, Miller told Mr. Henderson. Print that image, date stamp it. If they used an expired ID to pass a verification check for a $750,000 loan, the notary who stamped that is either incompetent or complicit. Mr. Henderson printed the page. He handed it to the deputy, who placed it into a plastic evidence bag. Okay, Miller said, turning to me. We have enough for a report. I am generating a case number now. He wrote a string of digits on a card and handed it to me. Case number 2, 60149. This number is your shield, he said. You give this to the credit bureaus. You give this to the bank. But right now, we have a tactical problem. The loan package is in the queue, but the money might be in the air. The escrow company, I said. Blue Heron Title, Miller read from his notes. You said you have the number? Yes. Call them, Miller said. Put it on speaker. Identify yourself. Tell them the property is under a fraud investigation. Do not answer questions. Just state the facts. I pulled out my phone. My fingers felt cold and clumsy. I dialed the number from the submitted byline on the deed. It rang once, twice. Blue Heron Title, Compliance Desk. A woman's voice answered. She sounded harassed, professional but rushed. This is Fallon Creekmore, I said. I am the legal owner of the property at 402 Ocean Drive. Gullhaven. There was a sudden silence on the other end. The clicking of a keyboard stopped. Ms. Creekmore? The woman said. Her voice was tight. We were just about to reach out to you regarding the final funding authorization. Do not fund, I said. I am standing with Deputy Miller of the County Sheriff's Department. I have just filed a police report for forgery and mortgage fraud regarding this transaction. The county recorder has placed a fraud hold on the title. A police report. The woman's voice went up a pitch. Case number 260149, Deputy Miller said. Leaning toward the phone, his voice was deep, authoritative. This is Deputy Miller. We have evidence that the identity documents submitted in your file are stolen and invalid. Any transfer of funds related to this file will be considered money laundering and facilitation of fraud. I heard a gasp on the other end. Then, the sound of a chair scraping back. Hold on, the woman said. I am freezing the file. I am locking it right now. We received the package from a broker. We were told it was a standard family refinance. It is not, I said. It is theft. Who is the closing officer? It is me, the woman stammered. My name is Linda. I swear, everything looked compliant. The notary log came back clean from the RON provider. Don't destroy anything. Linda, Miller warned. We will be serving a subpoena for the full audit trail, including the video of the signing session, if any data is deleted. You will be personally liable. I am freezing it, Linda repeated. I am flagging the lender to stop the wire. They were scheduled to release funds at 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock? It was almost noon. We had caught it by 2 hours. Do not contact the borrower, Miller added. Do not tip them off. Just stop the money. Understood, Linda said. I am marking it as a compliance hold. I ended the call. My knees felt weak. I leaned against the counter. Good, Miller said. That stops the cash. Now you need to protect yourself. He looked at me with a seriousness that was almost frightening. You need to freeze your credit, all 3 bureaus, Experian, TransUnion, Equifax. Do it in the car before you leave the parking lot. If they have your old ID and your social security number, they won't stop with the house. They will open credit cards. They will take out personal loans. I will do it, I said. And get a civil lawyer, Miller said. The police report gets the criminal investigation started, but it doesn't clear the title. You need a judge to vacate that deed. That is a civil matter. It is called a quiet title action. It is expensive, and it is slow, but it is the only way to get your name back. I understand. One last thing, Miller said. He looked at the evidence bag with my old driver's license. You said your father kept this for safety. That means he thinks he has a right to your identity. When he finds out the money isn't coming, he is going to lash out. He is going to try to intimidate you into dropping this. He can try, I said. If he shows up here, Miller said. If he comes to your door, call 911. Do not open the door. Do not engage. You have a case number now. You are not a daughter arguing with a dad. You are a victim of a crime. I nodded. I took the card with the case number. It felt lighter than the deed, but stronger. I walked out of the recorder's office, past Mr. Henderson, past Patricia, past the red banner that was silently guarding my home. I made it to the lobby of the building before my phone buzzed again. It was not a text from my mother. It was a forwarded email from Ethan. Subject FW. D. Loan package. 88392. Urgent signature required. I opened it. The email had been sent to Ethan's work address, his corporate email at the firm. The body of the email was generic, demanding, and official. Dear Mr. Calloway, attached. Please find the final disclosures for the joint loan application referenced above. Please sign via DocuSign immediately to ensure funding by close of business. I stared at the screen. They hadn't just used his name. They had found his work email. They had sent a fraudulent loan document to the server of a major Chicago investment firm. If Ethan's compliance department saw this, if they saw him listed as a borrower on a $750,000 loan that he hadn't disclosed, he could be fired. He could be investigated for insider trading or financial impropriety. In his world, financial transparency was a condition of employment. My parents knew that. Grant knew that. This wasn't just a robbery. It was a hostage situation. They were targeting Ethan's career to pressure me into compliance. Sign the papers, Fallon, or we blow up your husband's job. I dialed Ethan. I got it, he answered immediately. He sounded breathless, like he had walked out of a room fast. I just saw the email. Don't open the attachment, I said. Don't click the link. I didn't, Ethan said. But Fallon, this went through the company filter. It is in the system. If compliance flags this. I have a police report, I said, my voice hard. Case number 260149. Deputy Sheriff Miller, I am texting you a photo of the report right now. You take that to your compliance officer immediately. You tell them you are the victim of identity theft. You preempt it. They sent it to work, Ethan said. The shock in his voice was replaced by a cold fury I had never heard before. They sent it to my work. They are trying to kill us, I said. Not our bodies, our lives. Send me the case number, Ethan said. I am going to legal and Fallon. Yes. Burn them down, he said. Do not leave a single stone standing. I hung up. I stood in the atrium of the courthouse. The sun was streaming in through the glass. Bright and indifferent, I had the police report. I had the fraud hold. I had the evidence. But now I knew the scope of the battlefield. My parents weren't just greedy. They were tactical, and they had just made the mistake of thinking that because I was their daughter. I wouldn't fire back. They were wrong. I wasn't their daughter anymore. I was the plaintiff, and I was just getting started. My phone rang while I was sitting in the parking lot of the courthouse. I stared at the screen. The contact photo was a picture of my mother and me at my wedding, both of us smiling under a canopy of white orchids. It was a perfect image, curated and expensive, much like the woman calling me. I slid the green icon across the screen. I did not say hello. I just listened. Fallon. Darling, my mother's voice purred through the speaker. It was not the voice of a woman accused of a felony. It was the voice she used when she was arranging flowers or critiquing a caterer's menu. We received a rather aggressive notification from the title company. And Grant tells me you have put some sort of bureaucratic block on the condo, she sighed, a soft, disappointed sound that I had been trained since childhood to interpret as a personal failure. It is not a bureaucratic block. Mother, I said, staring at the courthouse bricks. It is a fraud hold, because you forged my signature. Oh, stop using such dramatic words, Celeste said. She laughed lightly. Forged, stolen. You sound like you are in a cheap television drama. We are simply handling the administrative side of things. We tried to call you last week, but you are always so busy with your little job. My little job paid for my car, my insurance, and my groceries. But to Celeste Creekmore, anything that did not involve managing a trust fund was a hobby. I am the owner on the deed, I said. You cannot sell my home. Your home? Celeste's voice dipped into a register of concern that was terrifyingly convincing. Fallon, look at the market. The insurance premiums in Florida have gone up 40% this year. The Homeowners Association is talking about a special assessment for the roof. Grant and I were looking at the numbers, and we realized you simply cannot carry that weight. We are doing this to save you. We want to liquidate the asset before it becomes a liability for you. It was a masterclass in gaslighting. She was rewriting the narrative in real time. She wasn't stealing $1 million asset. She was a benevolent financial advisor rescuing her incompetent daughter from an insurance bill. I pay my bills, I said. I have never missed a payment. For now, she said. But you know how fragile the economy is. We are just moving the asset back under the family umbrella. We can invest the equity in the main trust, and you will get a stipend. It is much safer. Sweetheart, you won't have to worry about maintenance or hurricanes. We are trying to give you peace of mind. I do not want a stipend, I said. I want my house, and I want you to withdraw the loan application you filed under my name. There was a pause. The warmth evaporated from her voice, replaced by a crystalline chill. We are restructuring, she said sharply. The family fund has some liquidity requirements this quarter. It is complex tax strategy. Fallon, you would not understand the nuances. We need to leverage the Gullhaven property to balance a position. It is standard operating procedure. It is not a strategy, I said. It is a crime. I have a case number. Mother, 260149. You are being ungrateful, she said, and you are embarrassing us. Do not make us treat you like an enemy. The line went dead. I lowered the phone. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the sheer, suffocating density of her manipulation. She truly believed it. She believed that because I was her daughter, my property was simply an extension of her inventory. My phone chimed with a notification from Ethan. Screenshot attached. I opened the image. It was a text message exchange between Ethan and my father. Grant, Ethan, we need to talk man to man. Fallon is having one of her episodes. She is hysterical about some paperwork we filed for the estate planning. She is dragging the police into a family matter. I need you to talk some sense into her before she does something that ruins her reputation. Let's grab a drink when you're back. I can explain the investment angle. I stared at the words man to man. It was the oldest trick in Grant's playbook. Divide and conquer. Appeal to the rational male to manage the emotional female. He was trying to recruit my husband to be my jailer. Below the screenshot was Ethan's reply to Grant. Ethan Grant, I am copying Fallon on this text, so we are all on the same page. I have seen the police report. I have seen the forged signatures. This is not an episode. This is identity theft. Do not contact me again via text. All future communication goes through our attorney or email. I let out a breath. A sob caught in my throat. Ethan had held the line. He hadn't taken the bait. In the world of the Creekmores, loyalty was bought. In my marriage, it was built. I started the car and drove back to Seabreak Residences. I needed to be inside my own walls. When I pulled into the parking garage, I checked my phone again. I had alerts set for the address. A new listing had popped up on a private real estate investment platform, different from the public one the realtor had used this morning. For sale luxury oceanfront unit, Immediate liquidation. Seller Azure Coast Holdings, LLC. Price $1,500,000. Cash only. They had raised the price, and they had changed the seller name, Azure Coast Holdings. I quickly searched the corporate registry on my phone. The LLC had been formed 3 days ago. The registered agent was a generic service in Delaware. But the mailing address was a P.O. box in the same zip code as my parents' country club. They were getting desperate. Cash only meant they wanted a buyer who wouldn't ask for a title insurance policy or a mortgage inspection. They were looking for a dirty deal to close fast, likely hoping to bypass the county hold by selling the LLC that supposedly owned the deed rather than the deed itself. I walked into the lobby of my building. The air conditioning was freezing. Mrs. Gable, a widow who lived on the 3rd floor and knew everyone's business, was retrieving her mail. She looked up and smiled, though her eyes darted nervously to my disheveled hair. "Oh, Fallon," she said. "I saw your mother earlier this week. She looked wonderful in that yellow dress." I stopped. "When did you see her, Mrs. Gable?" "Tuesday," she said. "Tuesday morning. I was coming in from my walk. She was going up in the service elevator with a gentleman." "A gentleman?" "Yes, wearing a uniform. I thought he was a plumber, but he had a drill. I assumed you were having some work done." My stomach turned over. Tuesday. That was the day I was at work. That was the day the lock was tampered with. "Did she say anything?" I asked. "She said you were having trouble with the keypad, and she was helping you upgrade it." Mrs. Gable said, "She is such a helpful woman. You are lucky to have parents who are so involved." "Yes," I said, my voice hollow. "Very involved." It wasn't a crime of opportunity. It was premeditated. Celeste had hired a locksmith, probably telling him she was the owner who had lost her keys, and physically drilled out my lock to install the one they had the code for. She had invaded my home, likely walked through my living room, touched my things, and then locked it up to sell it. I went up to my apartment. The hallway felt hostile now. I looked at the lock. I had already called a new locksmith, a guy named Mike, who was on his way to install a high-security deadbolt that cost $300. As I waited inside, my laptop pinged. Another email from Ethan. Subject HR. Alert Fallon. HR just pinged me. They received a verification of employment request from a lender called Apex Bridge Capital. The request included a salary authorization form with my signature on it. It's a copy of my signature from our tax returns 3 years ago. I closed my eyes. They were still pushing, even with the fraud hold, even with the police report. The machinery they had set in motion was still grinding forward. The lender was trying to underwrite the loan. They were using a 3-year-old tax return signature. My father must have kept a copy of our joint return from the year we asked him for advice on a write-off. He had kept everything. Every scrap of paper we had ever trusted him with was now a weapon. I realized then that defense was not enough. Stopping the sale wasn't enough. As long as they felt safe, they would keep attacking. They would find a new loophole. They would file for guardianship. They would sue me for mismanagement. Grant and Celeste Creekmore operated on a simple principle. They had more money, more time, and more shame than anyone else. They bet on the fact that I would not want to air the family laundry in public. They bet that I would retreat to save face. I opened a new email draft. I addressed it to Grant Creekmore and Celeste Creekmore. I CC'd Ethan Calloway, Deputy Miller, and the general inbox for Blue Heron Title. Subject notice of criminal investigation and demand to cease. Grant and Celeste. At 11:30 this morning, I filed a police report for identity theft, forgery, and mortgage fraud. The case number is 260149. The Sheriff's Department has secured the IP logs from the deed submission and the video evidence of the fraudulent notary session. I have confirmed with the county recorder that a fraud hold is active on the property. I have confirmed with the neighbor, Mrs. Gable, that she witnessed Celeste entering my unit with a locksmith on Tuesday without my consent. This witness statement will be added to the police file as evidence of burglary. Ethan has notified his corporate compliance department regarding the fraudulent use of his employment data. His company's legal team takes the impersonation of their employees very seriously. This is not a negotiation. This is not a family squabble. This is a criminal proceeding. If you do not withdraw the loan application with Apex Capital and file a quitclaim reversing the fraudulent transfer within 24 hours, I will petition the court for a restraining order and press for the maximum charges available under the law. I am not saving the family reputation anymore. I am saving myself. Fallon. I hit send. My finger hovered over the mouse for a second. I felt a wave of nausea, followed immediately by a rush of adrenaline. I had just declared war on the people who gave me life. But as I looked around the apartment at the view Grandpa Wade had loved, at the life I had built with Ethan, I knew the truth. They hadn't acted like parents for a long time. They were just two people who thought they owned the world, and they were about to find out that the world had rules. Even for them. I sat back and waited for the explosion. It wouldn't be a yell. It wouldn't be a scream. It would be the silence of predators realizing the prey had just picked up a gun. I did not go home to cry. I went to the 52nd floor of a glass tower in downtown Miami to hire a weapon. The offices of Hawthorne and Dre Legal Group smelled of old leather and new money. It was the kind of firm that did not advertise on billboards. They handled high-stakes property disputes, corporate divorces, and the kind of white-collar carnage that usually happened behind closed doors. I did not want a mediator. I wanted a demolition expert. I sat across from Marcus Thorne. He was a man in his 50s who wore his gray suit like armor. He had listened to my summary for 10 minutes without interrupting, his eyes scanning the police report, the affidavit, and the logs I had pulled from the recorder's office. "It is clean," Thorne said finally. He placed the papers down on the mahogany table. "The fraud, it is clean in execution, but sloppy in the digital footprint. They assumed you would never look." "I looked," I said. "Now I want to bury them." Thorne nodded. He opened a fresh legal pad. "We are going to fight this on two fronts. Ms. Creekmore, civil and administrative. The police report handles the criminal side, but the police cannot give you your title back. Only a judge can do that, and we need to move fast before that bridge loan funds." He picked up a gold pen. "First, we file a suit to quiet title." "Quiet title," I repeated. "It is a lawsuit that forces anyone with a claim to the property to come to court and prove it," Thorne explained. "We are essentially asking the judge to look at the chain of title, declare the quitclaim deed void ab initio, meaning it was invalid from the start, and confirm you as the sole owner. But filing the suit does something even more immediate." He wrote 2 words on the pad. "Lis pendens." "Notice of pendency," he said. "The moment we file this lawsuit, we record a lis pendens against the parcel number. It is a giant red flag in the public record that says, this property is subject to litigation. No title company will insure it. No bank will lend against it. If your parents try to sell to that cash buyer you saw listed, the buyer's due diligence will turn up the lawsuit, and they will run." "Do it," I said. "Second," Thorne continued, "we are filing for a temporary restraining order, an emergency injunction. We will ask the judge to explicitly forbid Grant and Celeste Creekmore from entering the premises, listing the property, or encumbering the title in any way. We will attach the police report and the witness statement from your neighbor about the burglary. This makes any further attempt by them to change the locks or access the unit a violation of a court order. That means immediate arrest, not just a report." "Good," I said. "What about the escrow company?" "They froze the file, but I do not trust them." Thorne smiled, a thin, sharp expression. "That is the administrative front. We are going to send a litigation hold letter to Blue Heron Title and Escrow, and to the RON provider, the platform that hosted the video notary session." He leaned forward. "We are not just asking them to stop. We are putting them on notice that if they delete a single byte of data, they will be liable for spoliation of evidence. We are demanding the full audit trail, the video of the signing, the audio, the IP logs, the identity verification reports. We want to see the exact moment the notary looked at a fake ID and clicked approve." "The notary," I said. "Someone stamped that deed. Someone looked at a woman who was not me and said it was fine. "We are going after her too," Thorne said. "We are filing a formal complaint with the Secretary of the Commonwealth against the Notary's Commission. We will allege gross negligence and failure to adhere to remote notarization standards. If she loses her license, she loses her livelihood." That tends to make people very cooperative witnesses when we need them to testify against your parents. I signed the retainer agreement. The fee was $5,000 up front. It was a lot of money, but it was cheaper than losing $1 million asset. As I signed, I felt a shift. I was no longer reacting. I was executing. I left the office and sat in my car. I checked my phone. Ethan had been busy. He had not just followed my advice. He had gone scorched earth. Done. His text read, "Credit frozen at all 3 bureaus. Fraud alerts placed. I have revoked all authorized user cards, and I changed the passwords." I called him. "What do you mean? Change the passwords?" "Everything. Fallon," Ethan said. His voice was calm, but it was the calm of a man who had just reinforced a bunker. Grant had the master password to our old family LastPass account. Remember, we shared it for the streaming services and the cloud storage. My stomach dropped. I forgot about that. "I didn't," Ethan said. "I kicked him out. Then I went into every single account bank, email, retirement, health insurance, and I generated new 30-character random passwords. I set up 2-factor authentication on everything, routed to an authenticator app on my phone, not SMS. If they try to reset a password, they will hit a wall." "Did they try?" "Yes," Ethan said. "Gmail notified me of a failed login attempt from a device in Florida 10 minutes ago. They are trying to get into your email to delete the notifications from the title company. They are trying to blind me," I said. "We cut the lines," Ethan said. "I also called the phone carrier. I put a verbal password on our account so they cannot SIM swap us to intercept the 2-factor codes. We are locked down. Fallon, they cannot get in." "Thank you," I said. I felt tears prick my eyes, not from sadness, but from relief. Ethan was not just my husband. He was my firewall. "I also found something else," Ethan said. "I pulled the access logs for our cloud drive. Someone downloaded our tax returns last week." "Grant," I said. "Yeah, he was building the file," Ethan said. "He was planning this for weeks. This wasn't an impulse. It was a heist." "I am leaving the lawyer now," I said. "We are filing the quiet title suit this afternoon." "Good," Ethan said. "Burn them." I drove back to the condo, but I did not go upstairs yet. I had one more stop. I walked into the management office of the Seabreak Residences. Sarah, the manager, looked up. She looked nervous. She had seen the police car earlier. "Ms. Creekmore," she said, "I have a formal letter for the Homeowners Association Board," I said, sliding a crisp envelope onto her desk. "And for your files." "Okay," she said, taking it gingerly. "This letter states that I am the sole legal owner of Unit 402, I said. "It instructs the association that all correspondence, all billing, all notices of assessments, and all legal notices must be sent directly to me at my email address and my physical address. It explicitly revokes any authorization for Grant or Celeste Creekmore to receive mail or information regarding this unit." "I understand," Sarah said. "It also states," I continued, "that if the association sends a bill to my parents and they pay it, that does not constitute ownership, and if the association gives them any information about my comings and goings, I will consider it a breach of privacy and sue the association for damages." Sarah nodded vigorously. "I will put a flag on the account right now. Owner contact only." "Thank you," I said. "And Sarah, if they send a check for the HOA fees, send it back." "Send it back." "I pay my own bills," I said. "I do not want their money mixing with my equity." I went upstairs. I sat on my balcony. The sun was setting, turning the Gulf of Mexico into a sheet of hammered copper. It was beautiful. It was mine. My phone rang. It was Marcus Thorne. We filed, he said. The lis pendens is recorded. The lawsuit is active. The clock has started. Thank you. Marcus, I said. Fallon, he said. His tone had changed. It was less professional, more curious. There is something else. When we prepared the suit, my paralegal ran a comprehensive background search on your parents. Standard procedure. We like to know who we are suing. And, are you aware of the litigation in New York? I frowned. New York? No. They live here. They have an apartment in the city, but they haven't been there in months. They are defendants in a civil suit filed 2 months ago, Thorne said, by a private equity group called Vanguard Holdings. What is the suit for breach of contract? Thorne said, and misrepresentation of assets. I sat up straighter. Explain. It looks like your father tried to syndicate a deal for a commercial development in Austin, Thorne said. He took investor money, but the deal fell through. The investors want their money back. The complaint alleges that Grant guaranteed the liquidity of the fund with personal assets he claimed to have. Assets he apparently does not have. The pieces clicked together like the tumblers of a lock. How much are they being sued for? I asked. $2 million, Thorne said. $2 million, I whispered. And, Thorne added, there is a motion for summary judgment scheduled for next week. If they do not post a bond or show proof of funds, the court could freeze their accounts. Silence stretched between us. The ocean roared below. That is why, I said. That is why they needed the cash now. That is why they tried to bridge loan the condo for $750,000. And that is why they listed it for quick cash sale. They are robbing Peter to pay Paul, Thorne said. They are insolvent. Fallon, or close to it. They weren't stealing your house because they are controlling narcissists, although they might be that too. They were stealing it because they are broke. I lowered the phone. The narrative in my head shifted, all day. I had thought this was about power. I thought it was about Celeste needing to own me, about Grant needing to be the patriarch who controlled the chessboard. But it was much more pathetic than that. They were drowning. The linen couple look, the country club memberships, the arrogance, it was all a facade. They were standing on a trapdoor that was about to open, and they had reached out to grab the only solid thing within reach, my home. They were willing to destroy my credit, my husband's career, and my sanity just to plug a hole in their sinking ship. They are desperate, I said to Thorne. Desperate people are dangerous, Thorne warned. But they are also prone to mistakes. This lawsuit in New York gives us leverage. If we expose the mortgage fraud here, it destroys their credibility in the New York case. They will go to prison, not just bankruptcy court. Good, I said. Let them sink. I will have the process server deliver the papers tomorrow morning, Thorne said. At their residence. Do you want to be notified when it happens? Yes, I said. I want to know the exact minute they realize I know. I hung up. I looked at the lockbox sitting on my coffee table. I had cut it open with bolt cutters earlier. Inside was a key, a shiny brass key that opened the lock they had illegally installed on my door. I picked it up. It was cold and heavy. They had tried to take my home to save their own skins. They had treated me not as a daughter, but as a resource, a liquidation event. I stood up and walked to the railing of the balcony. I held the key over the edge. I didn't drop it. Dropping it would be emotional. Instead, I put it in a plastic bag and wrote Exhibit D on it with a Sharpie. I wasn't just going to beat them. I was going to dismantle them. I was going to make sure that when the dust settled, the only thing they owned was the shame of what they had done. I went back inside and opened my laptop. I had one more email to write. This one wasn't to a lawyer. It was to the fraud department of the bank where my parents held their primary checking account. The one I knew about because Grant had made me a signatory 10 years ago, in case of emergency. I was still on that account. I had never used it, but I had the access. I logged in. I didn't take any money. I didn't touch a cent. I simply downloaded the last 6 months of statements. If they were hiding assets from the New York court, or if they were moving money to hide it from me, I would find it. I was the daughter of Grant Creekmore. He had taught me that information was currency, and I was about to become the richest woman in the room. The morning sun hitting the lobby floor of the Seabreak residences felt less like a welcome and more like an interrogation lamp. I had spent the night in a condo that I legally owned but which felt like a crime scene. Every time I looked at the front door, I saw the fresh scratches on the metal plate where the lock had been changed. I was not done with the building management. Yesterday, I had given them orders. Today, I needed answers. I walked into the security office. A small, glass-walled room tucked behind the mail center. The head of security, a man named Russo who usually spent his time reprimanding delivery drivers for parking in the wrong spot, was staring at a bank of monitors. "Mr. Russo," I said. I did not smile. He turned, his chair squeaking. "Ms. Creekmore, I heard about the confusion with your unit." "It is not confusion," I said. "It is burglary. I need the security footage from the fourth-floor hallway and the service elevator for Tuesday, January 20th, specifically between 9 in the morning and noon." Russo sighed. The heavy, performative sigh of a man who hated paperwork. He tapped his keyboard. "We only keep footage for 7 days. You are in the window. Let me check." He stared at the screen for a long time. He clicked the mouse. He frowned. He clicked again. "That is strange," he muttered. "What is strange?" "I have the feed from Monday," he said. "And I have the feed from Wednesday. But Tuesday morning the screen is black." My blood pressure spiked. A sharp, hot throb behind my eyes. Black. "We had a system maintenance scheduled that day," Russo said, reciting the line a little too quickly. "The vendor was updating the firmware on the NVR servers. The cameras were down from 8:30 to 1 o'clock. "How convenient," I said. "The exact window my parents used to drill out my lock and stage my apartment for sale. The security cameras were undergoing a firmware update." "It is just a coincidence," Russo said, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. "Who is the vendor?" I asked. "Apex Security Solutions," he said. "They handle the hardware." I made a mental note of the name. "Fine. If the cameras were down, the physical logs must be accurate. Show me the visitor log and the maintenance work orders for Tuesday." "I cannot show you internal logs without a subpoena," Russo said, retreating behind policy. "Mr. Russo," I said, leaning my hands on his desk, "I have a police case number. I have a fraud hold on the title, and I have a lawyer who is drafting a lawsuit that names the Seabreak Association as a facilitator of criminal trespass. Do you want to be named personally in that suit? Or do you want to show me the work order?" Russo looked at the door, then at me. He opened a binder on his desk. "I cannot give you a copy," he whispered. "But you can look." He flipped to Tuesday. There it was, a carbon copy form titled Emergency Lockout/Hardware Replacement. Unit 402, reason owner lost keys. Request immediate rekey, authorized. By Fallon Creekmore via on-site verification, technician Luis M. I stared at the signature at the bottom. Fallon Creekmore. It was a clumsy forgery. It was not the digital perfection of the deed. This was done with a ballpoint pen by someone trying to remember what my signature looked like. The slant was wrong. The loop on the C was too tight. "I did not sign this," I said. "I was at work." The notes say ID was verified. Russo pointed to a checkbox. "Who verified it?" "Luis," Russo said. "He is one of the maintenance guys. He has been here for 5 years. "Where is Luis?" "He is in the break room in the basement." I did not ask for permission. I turned and walked out of the security office, heading for the service elevator. The basement smelled of damp concrete and cleaning chemicals. I found the break room at the end of the hall. A man in a gray uniform was sitting at a round table, eating a sandwich. He looked up as I entered. "Luis?" I asked. He wiped his mouth with a napkin. "Yes. I am Fallon Creekmore, Unit 402. His eyes widened. He stopped chewing. He knew who I was, or rather, he knew who he thought he had helped on Tuesday. "Oh," he said. "Ms. Creekmore, is the new lock okay? The lady said you wanted the satin nickel finish." "The lady?" I repeated. "Luis. Look at me. Was I the woman standing there when you changed the lock? Luis looked at me. He looked at me. Confusion clouded his face. She looked like you, he stammered. Maybe a little older. She had big sunglasses on. And a hat. She said she was you. She had the ID. She showed you a driver's license? Yes, Luis said. She held it up. I checked the name. Fallon Creekmore. The picture looked like her. I mean, like you. But you know, hair changes. Did you take a copy of the ID? No, Luis said. We just verify. She gave me a tip. A good tip. She said she was in a rush to catch a flight and had locked herself out. How much was the tip? Luis, he looked down at his sandwich. $100. My mother paid you $100 to break into my apartment, I said. Your mother? Luis went pale. She said she was the owner. She signed the form. She forged the form, I said. Luis, listen to me carefully. The police are involved. I am not mad at you, provided you tell me the truth. Did anyone else speak to you? Did anyone tell you to prioritize this job? Luis hesitated. He looked at the door. Mr. Grant, he said softly. The older gentleman, he was in the lobby. He told me to take good care of the lady. He said she was his daughter and she was having a hard day. Grant was here, I said. Yes, he was talking to the security vendor. The guy from Apex? The camera guy, I said. Yeah, they were laughing. Mister, Grant gave him an envelope. I thought it was payment for a job. The puzzle pieces slammed together. Grant hadn't just relied on luck. He had engineered a blackout. He had paid the security vendor Apex to schedule maintenance for the exact hours Celeste would be impersonating me upstairs. It was a coordinated extraction of my privacy. Luis, I said, I need you to write that down, not for me, for yourself, because when the police come back, and they will come back, you need to be the witness, not the suspect. I just changed a lock, Luis said, his voice trembling. I was just doing my job. I know, I said. But you were used. I left the basement and went back up to the lobby. My phone buzzed. It was Marcus Thorne, my lawyer. We have the initial response from the court on the temporary restraining order, Thorne said. The judge granted it. Grant and Celeste are legally barred from coming within 500 feet of the Seabreak residences or contacting you directly. The sheriff is serving them now at their house in Royal Palms. Good, I said. But Marcus, it is worse than we thought. They bribed the building vendors. They paid to have the security cameras disabled while they broke in. Can you prove it? Thorne asked, his voice sharpening. I have a witness who saw Grant handing an envelope to the security contractor, I said. And the logs show a system maintenance blackout that aligns perfectly with the break-in. That is access facilitation, Thorne said. It is a conspiracy charge if we can prove the payment. Who is the vendor? Apex Security Solutions. Apex, Thorne repeated. Hold on. I am running a quick conflict check. I heard typing. Interesting. What? Apex Security Solutions is a subsidiary, Thorne said. The parent company is a firm called Bastion Global. Does that ring a bell? I racked my brain. Bastion Global. No. Your father used to sit on the advisory board of Bastion Global about 10 years ago, Thorne said. When he was still active in the private equity scene. Of course, I said bitterly. He called in a favor. He called an old buddy and asked for a blackout window. This changes the venue, Thorne said. This isn't just a quiet title action anymore. We are looking at a RICO predicate if we stretch it racketeering, using a criminal enterprise to defraud a homeowner. But that takes time. We need something faster. What do you suggest? We pull them into the light, Thorne said. We have the hearing for the permanent injunctions scheduled for next Thursday. Usually, these are administrative. The lawyers talk, the judge signs, but I'm going to subpoena Grant and Celeste to appear in person, and I am going to subpoena the representative from Apex Security. A public hearing, I said. Yes, in open court. The court docket is public record. If your father is being sued in New York for liquidity issues, the last thing he wants is a public record of him being cross-examined about bribing a security guard to rob his daughter. He will settle, I said. He will try to buy me off to stop the hearing. Exactly, Thorne said. And when he offers, we will say no. I hung up. I walked to the front desk. Sarah, the manager, was typing furiously. She stopped when she saw me. Ms. Creekmore, she said. She looked like she had been crying. I just got off the phone with the association president. They are very upset about the police report. They should be, I said. Sarah, I want the lock. The lock? The cylinder that was removed from my door on Tuesday, I said. Luis said he replaced it. The old lock, my lock. Where is it? We usually discard old hardware, Sarah said. Do not lie to me, Sarah, I said. You keep everything for 30 days. It is in the bin in the maintenance room. Go get it. She scrambled up and ran toward the back office. 2 minutes later, she returned with a clear plastic bag containing a brass lock cylinder. And I want the new one, I said. The one I cut off yesterday. I assume Luis brought it down. Yes, she said, handing me a second bag. I took both bags. I am taking these into evidence. And Sarah, if Grant Creekmore steps foot in this lobby, you are to call 911 immediately. If you call him a cab, or offer him coffee, or take an envelope from him, you are an accessory. We understand, she whispered. I walked out of the building. The sun was high and brutal. I got into my car and looked at the 2 bags of metal in the passenger seat. One was the lock Grandpa Wade had installed. A solid, heavy piece of brass that had kept me safe for 3 years. The other was a cheap, shiny replacement that my parents had installed to turn my home into a commodity. I picked up my phone and dialed the number for the detective in New York who was handling the case against my father. Marcus had given me the number. He said it was a nuclear option. Detective Vance, a gruff voice answered. Detective, my name is Fallon Creekmore, I said. I am Grant Creekmore's daughter. I understand you are investigating his assets. I cannot discuss an ongoing investigation, Vance said. I do not want you to discuss it, I said. I want to give you a tip. If you are looking for hidden liquidity, look at a shell company called Azure Coast Holdings, and look at a wire transfer request for $750,000 from a lender called Apex Bridge Capital. There was silence on the line. Then the sound of a pen clicking. Go on, Vance said. He tried to mortgage a property he does not own to hide assets from your plaintiffs, I said. I have the forged documents. I have the police report number in Florida, and I have the IP logs. Can you email that to me? Vance asked. His voice was no longer gruff. It was hungry. Sending it now, I said. I hit send on the email I had prepared while sitting in the lawyer's office. I sat back in the leather seat of my car. I was shaking. It wasn't fear. It was the vibration of a bridge burning. I had just handed my father over to a fraud investigation in another state. I had just ensured that he wouldn't just lose the condo. He might lose his freedom. But then I remembered the 3 knocks. I remembered the text, "Do not overreact." I remembered the expired ID in the hands of a stranger. They had opened the door to this. I was just walking through it. I started the car. I had one more person to see. The notary who had stamped the deed. The digital ghost. Marcus had found her name on the Ron log. Brenda L. Halloway. She worked out of a strip mall in Virginia, but she was licensed online. I wasn't going to Virginia. But I was going to make a phone call that would ruin her day. My parents had used people notaries, locksmiths, security guards like tools. They thought these people were invisible. They thought they could pay them to be silent. But I was going to make them speak. I was going to make a choir out of their witnesses. And the song they sang would be the end of the Creekmore reputation. The conference room at Hawthorne and Dre was cold enough to preserve meat. I sat across from Marcus Thorne, my hands wrapped around a cup of lukewarm coffee, staring at a timeline projected onto the smart glass wall. It was a visual representation of the history of my apartment. A chronological map of ownership that should have been a straight line from Wade Creekmore to Fallon Creekmore. Instead, it looked like a tangled ball of wire. "We found a ghost," Thorne said. He tapped a section of the timeline dated 8 years prior. "Before your grandfather deeded the condo to you in 2023, the property spent 6 months in a gray zone." I squinted at the chart. "Grandpa Wade owned it outright. He bought it cash in 1998. "He did," Thorne agreed. "But in 2018, a deed was recorded transferring the property into the Creekmore Family Limited Partnership. It is a structure often used for tax shielding and estate consolidation." "I never heard of a family limited partnership," I said. "That is because it was dissolved 4 months after it was formed." Thorne said, "Your father, Grant, was the general partner. Your grandfather was a limited partner. It looks like Grant tried to consolidate all the family assets, the houses, the stocks, the vintage cars under his control. Wade found out, fired the lawyers, dissolved the partnership, and deeded the condo back to himself. And then he deeded it to me," I said. "Correct," Thorne said. "Legally, the chain is unbroken. The partnership is dead. Wade's transfer to you is valid. But this explains your parents' psychological confidence. In Grant's mind, this condo was once in his bucket. He thinks pulling it back is just correcting a clerical error, not committing a felony. It does not help them in court," I said. "No," Thorne said, "but it muddies the water. They will argue that Wade was senile when he dissolved the partnership. They will argue that the transfer to you was undue influence. They are going to try to retroactively invalidate your deed to make their forged deed look like a restoration of order. They can argue whatever they want," I said. "They still forged a signature yesterday." "Which brings us to Blue Heron," Thorne said. He slid a thin file across the polished table. "We sent the litigation hold. They panicked. Their general counsel sent over a preliminary incident report this morning to show they are cooperating." I opened the file. It was a technical audit log of the remote online notarization session, the digital ceremony where I supposedly signed away my home. It was a wall of code and timestamps, but Thorne had highlighted 3 lines in neon yellow. "System alert, identity verification, mismatch, face geometry, low confidence, system action, hard stop initiated, user override, reviewer_04 authorized bypass. Reason code. Manual verification /V, IP, client." "The system tried to stop them," I whispered. "The software knew it wasn't me." "The facial recognition failed," Thorne said. "The woman posing as you, likely your mother in a wig and sunglasses, based on the pixelated thumbnail, didn't match the source photo on the ID. The computer locked the session." "And someone unlocked it," I said. Reviewer_04. "We need to know who Reviewer_04 is," Thorne said. "Is it a low-level tech who just clicks yes to clear the queue? Or is it someone your father spoke to, someone who was told that a VIP client was having technical trouble and needed a favor?" My phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it. "We are subpoenaing the employment records of Reviewer_04. Thorne continued. "We are going to ask them under oath why they overrode a fraud alert for $1 million transaction." I looked at the log again. The timestamp on the override was 2:14 in the afternoon, 1 minute before the notary stamp was applied. It was a tight, coordinated squeeze. My phone buzzed again, then a third time. I pulled it out, frowning. It wasn't a text. It was an email notification. From sender unknown, truth_seeker_99_encrypted protonmail.com. Subject regarding Blue Heron/Creekmore. I froze. "Marcus," I said, "look at this." I turned the phone screen toward him. The email body was short, written in courier font. "They have done this before. Check the expedited processing logs for the last 18 months. Your father is not the only one. Blue Heron is a wash cycle for dirty titles. They have a backdoor for friendly brokers. Reviewer_04 is not a person. It is a shared admin key." Attached to the email was a blurry image. It looked like a photograph taken of a computer screen in a dark room. It showed an internal chat window. User a Grant C. File is flagged. ID is expired. User B push it. He is a Tier 1 referral. Use the admin key. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. Who sent this? A whistleblower, Thorne said, his eyes narrowing. Or a disgruntled employee who knows the ship is sinking and wants to buy some goodwill. This proves it, I said. It is a conspiracy. It is a racketeering operation. It proves nothing yet, Thorne corrected me, his voice sharp. This is an anonymous email. It is inadmissible hearsay. We cannot walk into court and wave a screenshot from a Proton Mail account. The defense will shred it. They will say you faked it. So we ignore it. No, Thorne said. We use it as a map. He pulled a legal pad closer and began writing furiously. We do not introduce the email. Instead, we draft our discovery requests to target exactly what the email mentions. We ask for a list of all transactions authorized by reviewer_04. We ask for the internal chat logs regarding the Grant C file. We ask for the definition of a Tier 1 referral. We trap them, I said. Exactly, Thorne said. If they answer honestly, we have the smoking gun. If they deny the records exist, and we later find them, they go to jail for perjury and spoliation of evidence, we let them hang themselves. I left the lawyer's office feeling a strange mix of vindication and dread. The enemy wasn't just my parents anymore. It was a system. A machine built to let rich people bypass the rules that bound everyone else. I drove home. The sun was setting over Gullhaven, casting long, bruised shadows across the highway. When I walked into the apartment, Ethan was sitting at the kitchen island. He had 3 laptops open: his work computer, his personal MacBook, and an old Linux machine he used for network testing. You look like you are running a command center, I said, dropping my keys on the counter. I am, Ethan said. He didn't smile. We have a problem. A new problem. A legal problem, Ethan said. A process server just came to the building. The doorman called me. He tried to serve you. Serve me? I frowned. With what? Did the bank sue us? No, Ethan said. He turned the laptop screen toward me. He had pulled up the county court docket. Your parents filed a motion an hour ago. It is not a property suit. Fallon. I leaned in. The text on the screen was small, but the words screamed at me. In re the guardianship of Fallon Creekmore, Petitioner Grant and Celeste Creekmore. Nature of action, emergency petition for temporary guardianship, due to adult incapacity. The room spun. I had to grip the edge of the granite counter to keep my knees from buckling. Guardianship, I repeated, like for a person with dementia or a coma. Read the affidavit, Ethan said, his voice trembling with suppressed rage. I scrolled down. My mother's name was on the sworn statement. My daughter, Fallon Creekmore, has a history of emotional instability. In the last 48 hours, she has exhibited paranoid delusions, believing her family is stealing from her. She has physically barred access to family property, filed frivolous police reports, and threatened self-harm. We believe she is suffering from a manic episode and requires immediate financial and medical supervision to protect her assets. She said I threatened self-harm, I whispered. That is a lie. That is a complete, malicious lie. They are trying to Baker Act you, Ethan said, or the civil equivalent, if the judge grants this. They get control of your finances. They get to dismiss the lawsuit you just filed against them because you would lack the capacity to sue. It was brilliant. It was evil, and it was the nuclear option. They weren't just trying to steal the condo anymore. They were trying to delete me. They were willing to paint me as insane in a public court record just to cover their financial tracks. They used the police report, I realized. They are twisting it. They are saying my report of the crime is proof of the delusion. Grant texted me again, Ethan said. He said, "We just want to get her help. Ethan, don't stand in the way of her treatment." Treatment. I spat the word out. I walked to the window. I looked out at the dark ocean. I thought about the 3 knocks. I thought about the lockbox. I thought about the way my mother had looked at me at my wedding proud. Not of me, but of how I looked in the photos. They didn't see a person. They saw a broken doll that needed to be put back in the box. "We have to kill this," I said. "Tonight." "Thorn is already drafting the opposition," Ethan said. "But we need ammo. We need to prove you are the sanest person in the room." "I have my annual reviews," I said, my mind racing. "I was promoted 3 months ago. I manage a budget of $2 million at work. You don't let a crazy person handle that." "Get them," Ethan said. "Download every performance review, every commendation, every email from your boss praising your stability." "And my doctor," I said. "I have my annual physical from last month. Clean bill of health, no history of psychiatric medication, no therapy notes indicating crisis." "I will pull the credit reports," Ethan said. "We will show a credit score of 800. We will show 0 missed payments. Incapacitated people don't have perfect credit." I sat down next to Ethan. We worked in silence for 2 hours. We built a dossier of normalcy. We compiled a paper trail that proved I was a functioning, successful, rational adult woman. But as I downloaded the files, I felt a deep, burning humiliation. I shouldn't have to prove I was sane. I shouldn't have to show a judge my work emails to prove I had the right to own my own home. "Ethan," I said, pausing with my hand on the mouse, "why are they doing this? The fraud was about money. This feels like hate." Ethan looked at me. His eyes were sad. "It is control, Fallon. They are losing, and for people like Grant and Celeste, losing control feels like dying. They would rather destroy you than let you beat them." "They won't destroy me," I said. I finished the compilation. I attached the folder to an email to Marcus Thorne. Subject evidence of capacity/motion for sanctions. Marcus. Attached are my last 5 years of employment records, medical records, and financial statements. I am requesting that we not only file an opposition to the guardianship, but that we file a motion for sanctions against Grant and Celeste Creekmore for filing a verified pleading they know to be false. I want the judge to see this for what it is: litigation abuse designed to obstruct a criminal investigation. Also, add this to the file. The self-harm allegation is perjury. I was on the phone with Deputy Miller during the times they claim I was spiraling. He can testify to my demeanor. Hit them back, Fallon. I sent the email. I looked at the clock. It was 11:30 at night. "They made a mistake," I said to Ethan. "What mistake?" "They made it about my mind." I said, "If they had stuck to the deed, maybe they could have confused a judge with the family partnership history. But by claiming I am crazy, they just opened the door to my entire life, and my life is impeccable." "They are desperate," Ethan said. "They are cornered," I said. "And tomorrow, we are going to close the trap." I didn't sleep that night. I sat up reading the Blue Heron logs again. Reviewer_04. User override. My parents thought they could declare me incompetent, but I was the one who had found the glitch in their system. I was the one with the timestamps. The next morning, Thorne sent over the draft of our response. It was vicious. It accused my parents of weaponizing the probate court to facilitate grand larceny. It demanded an immediate evidentiary hearing. And then, just before noon, Thorne called. "We got the judge," Thorne said. "He read the emergency motion. He read our response. He is not happy." "Is he dismissing it?" "Better," Thorne said. "He is ordering a status conference, in chambers, tomorrow morning. He wants to see you, and he wants to see Grant and Celeste. In person, they have to come to court. They have to look the judge in the eye," Thorne said. "And if they cannot produce a single shred of medical evidence that you are incapacitated, the judge is going to be very interested in why they signed a sworn affidavit saying you were—" "I will be there," I said. "Bring the logs," Thorne said. "Bring the lock. Bring everything." I hung up. The twist wasn't that there was a secret family partnership. The twist wasn't the anonymous email. The twist was that my parents, in their arrogance, had walked into the one room where their money couldn't buy the truth a judge's chambers. They had tried to take my agency, and in doing so, they had given me the perfect stage to expose them. I looked at the file on the table. Reviewer_04 had overridden the system. My parents had overridden their morality. But tomorrow, the override codes would stop working. Tomorrow, the system would reset, and I would be the one holding the keyboard. The red banner on the county recorder's website was supposed to be a firewall. I had spent the last 24 hours believing that the fraud hold I had placed was an impenetrable shield. A digital force field that would bounce any attempt my parents made to touch my property. I was wrong. A firewall only works if the attacker uses the front door. My parents were checking the windows. It was 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Thursday. I was sitting on my living room floor, surrounded by the physical debris of a legal war stacks of printed emails, bank statements, and the brass lock cylinder I had recovered from the trash. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Mr. Henderson, the clerk at the recorder's office who had given me his direct line. "We just caught a straggler. Check your email." I opened my laptop. The email from the county system was an automated rejection notice. But Mr. Henderson had attached a screenshot of the submission. It was a corrective deed. Usually, these are used to fix typos, but this document was attempting to transfer a property legally described as Seabreak Residences. Unit 4022 words. Seabreak. Instead of the official compound word, Seabreak, by adding that one space, by changing the spelling just enough. The automated system hadn't immediately linked it to the parcel number with the red flag. It had bypassed the primary algorithm. It was sitting in a manual review pile for unindexed properties. If Mr. Henderson hadn't been watching the queue like a hawk, if he hadn't manually searched for my name instead of just the parcel number, it might have slipped through. They were trying to create a cloud on title, a conflicting record that would make it impossible for me to sell or refinance, effectively holding the property hostage even if they couldn't steal it outright. I felt a cold sweat prickle my hairline. They weren't stopping. They knew I had a lawyer. They knew I had a police report. And they were still throwing paper at the wall, hoping something would stick before the judge stopped them tomorrow. My inbox pinged again. This time, it was Sarah from the HOA management office downstairs. Subject urgent. Payment and address. Change request, Ms. Creekmore. We just received a courier package containing a cashier's check for $12,000 from a Creekmore family trust. The cover letter instructs us to credit your account for the next 2 years of HOA dues and to update the official mailing address for all future notices to a P.O. box in Royal Palms. They also requested to be added as authorized payers with voting rights. I stared at the screen. It was a Trojan horse, if the HOA accepted that check. My parents could argue in court that they were the ones maintaining the asset. They could argue that I was financially dependent on them. They were trying to buy a paper trail of ownership. They wanted to stand in front of the judge tomorrow and say, "Your Honor, how can we be stealing the property when we are prepaying the maintenance fees to protect it?" I typed a reply, my fingers hitting the keys hard enough to hurt. "Sarah, do not cash that check. If you cash it, you are accepting proceeds from a criminal enterprise. Return it via certified mail. Do not change the address. If a single piece of mail goes to Royal Palms, I will sue the association for breach of fiduciary duty." I hit send. I needed to talk to Ethan. I needed to hear a sane voice. I dialed his number. "I was just about to call you," Ethan said. His voice was tight, vibrating with a tension I rarely heard from him. "You are not going to believe what just happened." "They tried to file a corrective deed with a typo," I said. "And they tried to prepay the HOA. That is child's play," Ethan said. "Fallon, I am at the hotel in Chicago. I was just coming back from lunch. The concierge stopped me. He said a mobile notary was waiting for me in the lobby." My grip on the phone tightened. "A notary? A woman. She said she had an appointment with Ethan Calloway to sign urgent loan modifications. She had a folder. Fallon, she had the Apex Bridge Capital logo on it. Did you talk to her?" "No," Ethan said. I went straight to the hotel security director. We approached her together. When she saw the badge, she got nervous. She said the appointment was booked online by a Grant C, and she was paid an extra $200 for a rush service. She thought it was legitimate. They tried to ambush you. I realized. The horror of it washed over me. They wanted to catch you off guard, maybe pressure you into signing something, or just claim you refused to sign to make you look uncooperative. Or, Ethan said, his voice dropping, they were going to have someone else meet her in the lobby pretending to be me. If I hadn't walked in at that exact second, she might have met with an imposter. She had my name, Fallon, but she didn't know my face. Did you get her info? I got everything, Ethan said. The hotel copied her logbook. We have the IP address of the booking. I filed an incident report with the hotel and my company's legal department. I am now officially a victim of attempted identity fraud on corporate property. My boss is furious. He wants blood. Good, I said. We need blood. We need irreparable harm. I am flying back tonight, Ethan said. I don't care about the conference. I am not leaving you alone there. I am okay, I said, though my hands were shaking. I am locked in. I will see you at midnight, he said. I hung up and called Marcus Thorne immediately. We have enough, I told him, recounting the typo deed and the mobile notary ambush. I agree, Thorne said. This goes beyond a property dispute. This is harassment. I am filing an emergency supplement to our TRO request right now. The judge needs to see that they are actively escalating despite the pending hearing. This proves that money damages aren't enough. They are trying to destroy your legal identity. Marcus, I said, Grant is not just working remotely anymore. He is here. What do you mean? I just got a text from the gate, I said, looking at the notification that had just popped up. Grant Creekmore is at the front gate of Seabrake Residences. Is he trying to come up? Thorne asked sharply. No, I said. He knows his code doesn't work. He told the guard he is going to the on-site management office to drop off urgent documents. He is trying to intimidate the witnesses. He wants to scare Sarah. Do not go down there, Thorne ordered. Stay in your unit. Lock the door. If he comes up the elevator, call 911. I am not going down, I said. I am watching. I went to the window. From my vantage point on the 4th floor, I could see the visitor parking lot. I saw my father's car, a silver Mercedes sedan. It was parked crookedly, aggressively taking up 2 spots. I saw Grant get out. He was wearing a suit, despite the heat. He looked impeccable from this distance, the very picture of a distinguished older gentleman. He carried a thick manila envelope. He walked toward the management office with a stride I knew well, the walk of a man who assumes doors will open for him. My phone rang. It was Sarah. He is here, she whispered. Ms. Creekmore, your father is here. He is demanding to speak to the manager about the accounting error with the check. You are not the manager today. Sarah, I said, you are a witness. Tell him the account is under legal review, and you cannot accept any documents. Tell him to leave. He is very intense, Sarah said. He is smiling, but he is staring at me. He says he just wants to help his daughter. Put him on speaker, I said. Do not tell him I am on the line. Just put the phone down. There was a fumble, and then I heard his voice. It was tinny through the speakerphone, but it cut through me like a knife. Understand you are in a difficult position, young lady, Grant was saying. His voice was smooth, patronizing. But my daughter is not well. She is confused. We are simply trying to ensure her bills are paid so she does not lose her home. Now, if you would just countersign this receipt. Mr. Creekmore, Sarah's voice quavered. I cannot. The police report. The police report is a misunderstanding, Grant interrupted, his voice hardening. It will be withdrawn tomorrow. Now, take the check. Do not make this harder than it needs to be. I unmuted my phone. Get out, Grant, I said. Silence filled the room downstairs. I could imagine him looking around, trying to find the source of my voice. Fallon, he asked, He didn't sound ashamed. He sounded annoyed. "Are you listening in? This is childish." "You are trespassing," I said. "Sarah has already alerted the police, and my lawyer is filing an affidavit regarding this interaction as we speak. You are harassing a witness." "I am paying your bills," Grant shouted. The veneer cracked. The rage spilled out. "You ungrateful little, I bought that condo. It is my money. It is all my money." "It was Grandpa Wade's money," I said. "And now it is my home. Leave, or you will leave in handcuffs." "You will regret this," Grant hissed. "When the judge sees your medical file, you will be in a facility by the weekend." "The only file the judge is going to see is the one where you tried to rob me," I said. I heard footsteps, then the slam of a door. "He is gone," Sarah sobbed. "Lock the door." "Sarah," I said, "and send me the security footage of that interaction. He just admitted it was his money. He just admitted the motive." I sat back on the couch. My heart was hammering against my ribs, but my head was clear. He had lost control. He had screamed in a public office. He had shown his true face to a third party. I looked at the clock. 5:30. The courts were closing. The TRO hearing was set for 9 in the morning. My computer pinged with a high-priority notification. It was from the litigation team at Hawthorne and Dre. Subject: production of evidence. Blue Heron title: Fallon. We just got the data dump from the RON provider. They folded. They sent the raw video file of the notarization session. I clicked the link. The file was large, 200 megabytes. It downloaded slowly, the progress bar crawling across the screen like a fuse burning down. I put on my headphones. I needed to hear every breath. The video player opened. The screen showed a split view. On one side was the notary, a woman with tired eyes sitting in a home office with a messy bookshelf behind her. On the other side was a webcam feed. The woman in the webcam feed was wearing a wide-brimmed sun hat and oversized sunglasses. She was wearing a scarf that covered her neck. It was a caricature of a disguise. It was Celeste. I knew the line of her jaw. I knew the nervous way she licked her lips. "Can you please state your name for the record?" the notary asked. "Fallon Creekmore," Celeste said. Her voice was pitched higher. Trying to sound younger, it sounded ridiculous. "And you are located in the Commonwealth of Virginia." "Yes," Celeste said. "Please hold your ID up to the camera." Celeste held up my old driver's license, the one with the bob cut. The notary squinted at her screen. "The system is flagging a mismatch," the notary said. "Ma'am, can you remove your glasses?" Celeste froze. "I have an eye infection. The light hurts. I really need to see your eyes for the biometric scan," the notary insisted. Then it happened, from off camera. A voice spoke. It was low, impatient, and distinct. "Just override it. Tell her the code." It was Grant. He was in the room with her. He wasn't just a beneficiary. He was the director. Celeste cleared her throat. "My father spoke to your manager. He said to use the VIP bypass. The code is wait." I heard paper shuffling. 77 Alpha, Grant's voice whispered, loud enough for the microphone to catch. 77 Alpha, Celeste repeated. The notary hesitated. "Okay, I see the override authorization here. Proceeding?" I paused the video. I sat in the silence of my apartment. I had them. I didn't just have a forged signature. I had audio of my father feeding the override code to my mother while she impersonated me to steal $1 million. I had the smoking gun, the bullets, and the fingerprints. This wasn't just fraud. This was a conspiracy. And tomorrow, in the judge's chambers, I wasn't going to play the victim. I was going to play this video. I saved the file to my hard drive. I saved it to a USB stick. I emailed it to Ethan. I emailed it to Marcus Thorne. I emailed it to Deputy Miller. I walked out to the balcony. The sun had gone down. The ocean was black and restless. Tomorrow, my parents would walk into court expecting to argue about mental health and family trusts. They would walk in expecting to bully a daughter. They had no idea that I was bringing a ghost into the room with us, the digital ghost of their own greed. Recorded in high definition, I wasn't afraid anymore. I felt a cold, hard clarity. They had tried to take my past, my present, and my future. Tomorrow, I would take their mask. The hearing was not held in a grand courtroom with a gallery full of spectators. It took place in the cramped, wood-paneled chambers of Judge Anthony Harper. The intimacy of the room made the tension worse. There was nowhere to look but at the people who had tried to erase me. Grant and Celeste sat on the opposite side of the mahogany conference table. They were dressed for a funeral, or perhaps a board meeting. Grant wore a charcoal suit that cost more than my car. Celeste was in navy blue, clutching a handkerchief she did not need. They looked dignified. They looked like the victims. When I walked in with Marcus Thorne, my lawyer, Grant did not look at me. He looked through me. He was staring at the wall, his jaw set in a hard line of annoyed impatience. As if this were just a scheduling conflict he needed to resolve before his tea time. Judge Harper did not look impatient. He looked at the stack of motions before him with the weary expression of a man who had seen every variety of human greed and was unimpressed by this latest iteration. "We have a lot of paper here," Judge Harper said, adjusting his glasses. "We have a petition for emergency guardianship filed by the parents, and we have a request for a temporary restraining order and a quiet title action filed by the daughter, since the guardianship motion claims Ms. Creekmore is mentally incapacitated. We will start there. If she is not competent, she cannot sue." Grant leaned forward. His voice was a rich, practiced baritone, the voice he used to close deals. "Your Honor," he said, "we did not want to bring this to a public forum. Fallon has been struggling. She has been paranoid. She imagines conspiracies. We are simply trying to protect the family assets until she is stabilized." "Stabilized," Judge Harper repeated. He looked at me. "Ms. Creekmore, do you know what day it is?" "It is Friday, January 23rd, I said. My voice was steady. "And I am the vice president of operations for a logistics firm, where I managed a budget of $4 million this morning before driving here." Marcus Thorne slid a binder across the table. "Your Honor," Marcus said, "this binder contains Ms. Creekmore's medical records from the last 5 years, her performance reviews from her employer, and a sworn affidavit from Deputy Miller of the Sheriff's Department attesting that when she filed the police report 2 days ago, she was lucid, rational, and articulate. The only delusion my client suffers from is the belief that her parents would not steal from her. And as we are about to show, that was not a delusion, it was a fact." The judge flipped through the binder. He stopped at the credit report. He stopped at the letter from my CEO. "Mr. Creekmore," the judge said, not looking up, "you signed an affidavit stating your daughter was a danger to herself. Do you have any clinical evidence, a doctor's note, a hospital admission?" "We know our daughter," Celeste piped up, her voice trembling. "She has been acting erratic. She refused to let us into the condo." "Refusing entry to one's home is a property right, not a symptom of insanity," Judge Harper said. He closed the binder. "The motion for guardianship is denied with prejudice. I find no evidence of incapacity. In fact, based on the filing speed of these motions, Ms. Creekmore seems quite capable." He turned his gaze to me. "Now, let us talk about the condo." "Thank you, Your Honor," Marcus said. "We are asking the court to invalidate a quitclaim deed recorded on January 22nd. We allege that this deed is a forgery." "It is not a forgery," Grant snapped. "It was an electronic transfer. She authorized it. She is just having seller's remorse because she wants to keep the cash in the house." "Exhibit A," Marcus said. "The lockbox." He placed the photo of the unauthorized lockbox on the table. "Exhibit B," Marcus continued. "The work order from the Seabrake residences, showing that a woman impersonating Fallon Creekmore hired a locksmith to drill out the locks on Tuesday morning. We have the locksmith's statement that he was paid in cash by this woman." "That is circumstantial," Grant's lawyer interrupted. "Exhibit C," Marcus said, his voice dropping an octave. "The video." Grant froze. Celeste stopped dabbing her dry eyes. Marcus opened his laptop and turned the screen toward the judge. He pressed play. the room filled with the sound of the remote notary session. We watched the pixelated video of Celeste, wearing her ridiculous sun hat and sunglasses, holding up my expired driver's license. We heard the notary ask for her to remove the glasses. We heard the hesitation, and then, clear as a bell, we heard the voice from off-camera. Just override it. Tell her the code. 77 Alpha. The silence in the judge's chambers was total. It was a vacuum. I watched the blood drain from Grant's face. He recognized his own voice. He knew there was no spinning this. There was no context that could explain why he was feeding an override code to his wife while she pretended to be his daughter. Marcus let the video play to the end. He let the judge see the moment the digital stamp was applied. "Your Honor," Marcus said softly, "we also have the IP logs provided by Blue Heron Title under subpoena yesterday. The upload originated from the residential IP address registered to Grant Creekmore in Royal Palms, and the device used to access the portal was a MacBook Pro named admin_GC. Judge Harper stared at the screen. He looked at Celeste, who was now staring at her lap, her hands shaking violently. He looked at Grant, who was pale but still trying to maintain his posture. "Mr. Creekmore," the judge said. His voice was dangerously quiet. "Did you, or did you not, instruct the notary to override the identity verification system?" Grant cleared his throat. "Your Honor, you have to understand. The property was originally mine. I paid for it years ago. We were just moving it back to the trust to protect Fallon from tax liability. It was a technicality. We were helping her." "Helping her?" the judge repeated. "She is my daughter," Grant said, his voice rising. "I have supported her whole life. I put a roof over her head, if I need to move an asset to ensure the family's liquidity. That is my right as the patriarch of this family. You cannot steal what you paid for." Judge Harper slammed his hand down on the table. The sound cracked like a gunshot. "Stop," the judge commanded. "Right now." He leaned forward. "Mr. Creekmore, this is a court of law, not a feudal kingdom. You do not have rights over your adult daughter's property because you are the patriarch. You do not get to commit felonies because you think you are helping. What I just watched was not estate planning. It was identity theft. It was wire fraud. And it was a criminal conspiracy to defraud a lender." He turned to the court reporter. "Let the record show that the quitclaim deed recorded on January 22, 2026, is declared void ab initio. It is a nullity. The title remains vested solely in Fallon Creekmore." He turned back to Grant. "I am granting the temporary restraining order. You are to have no contact with the plaintiff. You are to come nowhere near the property at Seabreak Residences. You are barred from filing any further liens, deeds, or encumbrances against this parcel." "But the loan," Grant stammered. "The bridge loan. We have a contract." "The deed of trust is void," the judge said. "If you took money from a lender based on a forged title, that is between you and the district attorney. And speaking of the district attorney, I am ordering the transcript of this hearing and the video evidence to be forwarded to the state attorney's office for review." "You can't do that," Celeste whispered. "We are the Creekmores." "I don't care if you are the Kennedys," Judge Harper said. "You broke the law in my chambers. Get out." We walked out of the courthouse into the blinding Florida afternoon. It wasn't like the movies. There were no reporters screaming questions. There was no slow-motion walk. It was just the humidity, the traffic noise, and the sight of my parents getting into their car without looking back. Grant looked smaller. The suit that had looked like armor inside now just looked like a costume. He was on his phone, likely calling his criminal defense lawyer, likely trying to explain to his New York investors why the $750,000 he promised them wasn't coming. "It is over," Marcus said, packing his briefcase on the sidewalk. "The order will be recorded within the hour. The fraud hold stays on for a year just to be safe, and I spoke to the general counsel at Blue Heron. And they fired the notary this morning," Marcus said. "She surrendered her commission. And the reviewer who authorized the override, he was a mid-level manager who admitted Grant promised him a job at his firm. He is being indicted." Thank you. Marcus, I said. I drove back to the condo. I didn't go inside immediately. I went to the management office. Sarah was there. She looked terrified when she saw me. It is okay, I said, handing her a copy of the court order. They can't come back. Sarah, if they show up, you don't have to be polite. You just call the police. She took the paper. She looked at the judge's signature. She exhaled. A long, shuddering breath. Thank you, Ms. Creekmore. We returned the check. I went upstairs. Ethan was waiting. He had flown in at midnight. Just as he promised. He was standing in the kitchen, making coffee. The smell filled the apartment, replacing the lingering scent of anxiety that had hung there for 3 days. Did we win? He asked. We won, I said. The deed is gone. The guardianship is dead. And the judge sent the file to the prosecutor. Ethan put down the mug. He walked over and hugged me. He didn't say anything. He just held me. I realized then how tired I was. I had been running on adrenaline and rage for 72 hours. They are going to go to jail, aren't they? I asked into his shoulder. Maybe, Ethan said. Or they will go bankrupt fighting it. The New York lawsuit is going to crush them now that the fraud is public. But Fallon, that is not your problem. You didn't do this to them. They did it to themselves. I pulled away and looked around the apartment. It looked different, for 3 years, even though I had the deed. I had always felt like a guest here. I had felt the ghost of Grandpa Wade, and the looming shadow of my parents' expectations. I had worried about whether the furniture was too modern for Celeste's taste, or if Grant would approve of the renovations. Now, looking at the sunlight hitting the tile floor, I didn't feel their shadow anymore. I walked to the balcony door. The lock, the new, high-security lock that I had installed, clicked smoothly. It was a solid sound, a sound of finality. We stepped out onto the balcony. The ocean was a brilliant, hard blue. The waves crashed against the sand, a rhythm that had been here long before the Creekmores and would be here long after. I thought about the corrective deed with the typo. I thought about the fake smile on the realtor's face. I thought about the linen couple who thought they had bought a view. They had all underestimated the power of a piece of paper. My parents thought power came from money, from connections, from the ability to shout down a manager. But true power in this world is boring. It is a timestamp. It is a log file. It is a signature that matches the one on file. I leaned against the railing. What do we do now? Ethan asked. Now, I said, watching a seagull dive into the surf. We changed the locks one more time. We put the property into a trust with an anonymous name, and we live. I took a deep breath of the salt air. It tasted clean. My name was Fallon Creekmore. But more importantly, the name on the deed was mine. And for the first time in my life, that was enough. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I would love to know where you are tuning in from. So please leave a comment below sharing your city or country, and let's chat about what you would have done in Fallon's shoes. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to the Juliet Revenge Stories channel, like this video, and hit that hype button to help this story get heard by even more people.